welcome to another watch list. My weekly look or so at films, and it's been a bit of a while since I've done one of these, so I've probably more films to talk about than I probably have time for, so I'm going to pick a selection of those that I've watched. And I've put a bit of a spin at this week because I've tried to watch films that were recommended by subscribers of the channel. So whether on their own channels or through the comments, I've tried to pick a couple of films that are relevant towards those and see what I think. And the first one of those that I watched was Dr. Caligari, or The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari by Robert Vina. Even though it kind of says a F.W. Murnau film at the start of it. It's another presentation from Eureka Masters Cinema's collection that is beholden to silent film. So this one's from 1920, it's German, and it tells the story of a carnival man who has an act basically where he has what is called a somnambulist, which I think is a sleepwalker. I meant to look that up, but anyway, it's a Frankenstein looking creature in a box that he takes out and he predicts the future, and in many cases he just predicts when people are going to die. So as it turns out, that night, if he predicted the person would be dead tonight, the person did end up dead that night. And then there's a question as to whether, well, are these two things linked? Because dear God, this Frankenstein looking creature is awful scary looking. He's played wonderfully by Conrad Veidt in what is a really great role for him. I think it seemed to be the one that introduced him to a lot of success, in that he's incredibly effective without speaking and just his look, in the same way that many people around that time got to do that. Salon Cheney and, you know, etc. used very physical acting as a way to be successful on screen and carry their face, etc. as a character in some ways. The film is great. Not only is it well told, but the set design, production design is all incredible. I would say actually some of the inside set design is very reminiscent of something like Dr. Seuss. So the angular kind of buildings, the way they're cut and shown, and you know, always something very interesting to look at on the screen, which I always think is a big plus. And it has a nice twist at the end. It's also a terrific disc. It has a video essay by David Kearns, which are always great to see, and then it also has an audio commentary. And one of my favourite things is the documentaries that tell the story of the importance of the film in the history of that period in time, so in Germany around 1920, and how important this was and how it was seen around that time, because I'm sure it was a very scary film for those times. It definitely would have been a horror film around those times, even if it's not that horrific now. It's still creepy, but a great recommendation all the same. Next up, I'm going to talk about some things that I generally don't talk about on the channel, and that's 4K discs. So I managed to pick a few of these up, mainly because people were giving them away, which maybe should have been a bit of a clue. And the first of those is Aquaman. I picked it up, I think it was about £6 for 4K disc. I thought, well, how could it beat it? It had a nice slip cover. It was supposedly a great looking example of a 4K film, and you know, superhero movies generally have some mileage in our house because I have two young daughters that do like it. So when I said we'd stick on Aquaman, they were all for it. But when I hit play, they disappeared. They wanted to go off and play Roblox or whatever else it is that they do. And so me and the wife watched it, and I have to say it was utterly terrible. And I mean capital T-E-R-R-I-B-L-E. I usually quite enjoy superhero movies as a way to pass time. They're always usually watchable, and I have to admit that I generally don't like Jason Momoa. He ruins a lot of things that I see him in. C is a pretty good TV series except for him. I think he kind of, there's just something about him that doesn't resonate with me. He was okay in Stargate Atlantis, but it wasn't really about him, and I don't think he carries this well. Now I know a lot of people disagree with me, but I don't like Aquaman. Some of the writing and dialogue in it is truly cringeworthy, and I know Sacha Baron Cohen was doing a film about tropes that he doesn't like to see. It's that cringeworthy, jingoistic, cliche dialogue that they feel they have to throw into, especially like bombastic superhero movies or something like that. So yeah, not a great example of a movie. Very good looking, but I also would say it's too colourful, it's too bright. It's a good looking disc, but not, you know, when the film doesn't hit home with you, it's hard to say, God, you should watch that just because it's good looking. You can go and stick on some, you know, flyovers of the Grand Canyon or something if you want a better example. The other 4K disc that I watched was The Dark Crystal, which was a Jim Henson movie that basically tells the story of, well, it starts with 3 suns lining up on the planet, and it shatters a dark crystal, and it seems that there are remnants at the end of goodies and baddies. So you've got the mystics of the goodies and the skeptics of the baddies, and coming to a point way down the line that the 3 suns are going to line up again. They're going to hit the crystal, but the crystal is broken, and the crystal will need prepared. And the legend says that a young insert, you know the story that comes after that, must go and do it. And I thought The Dark Crystal was pretty good. I mean, it's not incredible by any means or feats, but it's a pretty good movie and pretty good fantasy fare. And actually some of the puppetry I think is outstanding. As somebody that grew up with Jim Henson and grew up with the Muppets and is a bit of a fan of the Muppets still, I have to say, it still raises a laugh, and I still would go on away to watch a Muppet movie. I think this was pretty good. Next up is another recommendation, this one by Nazarene from his channel, and it was, and I told him it was going to cost me some money, but it's a Tsukamoto 3 films of his Killing and the Adventure of Densho Kozo, and I've only watched the bottom 2, and that is the Killing and the Adventure of Densho Kozo. Wasn't much of a fan of Densho Kozo. Was a bit too weird for me, I think, for the headspace at the time. But I would like to talk about Killing, because it does seem the one that people want to talk about from this series. So Killing, I've stolen this premise from somebody else. It might have been from Nazarene himself, but Killing basically tells a story of the 7 samurai, the bit in the 7 samurai where they go around recruiting the other samurai. And when they get to a farm, and a samurai gets to a farm, he tries to recruit one of the samurai that's there, and it tells the story of how he recruits him, or what happens when he recruits him. He's a young samurai, and the young samurai has obviously protecting the homeland of the farmstead of these people, and their son is somebody who looks up to him immensely, and he wants to become a samurai as well. And really the young samurai humours him by training him, but really just only playing him along. And the daughter seems to have really taken a shine into the young samurai, so when the older samurai comes along to recruit him and he agrees to go, it causes some friction in the house, or some problems, mainly because he doesn't want to just recruit the young samurai who he sees as talented. He wants to recruit the other young boy, who's the son of the farmer, who obviously isn't ready, which means you question the motivations of the older samurai. Is he truthful? What's happening? And around this time, of course, there's the threat to the farm from a group of bandits, and what they're going to do. And that's really the story, or the setup, or the premise for The Killing. And I thought The Killing was excellent. Tsukamoto's in it himself as the old samurai. And again, it's not a outlandishly large scope of film, but it's about, you know, looking at the importance of that young samurai to the family and the extended family, and then if and when he's threatened to go, what it means for people around that time. And I did think it was excellent, like, I mean, really excellent, and made it worth actually the fact that I haven't liked the other film. I've still the other one to watch, his. I still think it's a worthwhile purchase, because I would definitely watch The Killing again. Next up is another one of those Studio Canal Vintage World Cinema titles, and that is Casque d'Or by Jacques Becker. And if I was to say anything about this year in film, I think one of the main things is the fact of how much French cinema, both modern and past, I have watched and enjoyed. And this is another one that I thoroughly enjoyed. It tells the story of Marie here, who is the girlfriend of a mob henchman, so to speak. So there seems to be a mob in the village at the time. It's set around 19th century France, I think. And there seems to be this clique of young men who are the henchmen for a mob boss, and this is his dame, so to speak. Even though she's playing hard to get, she seems to be kind of not that bothered or enamored by the lifestyle that it comes. She just wants somebody to look after him. And on the scene comes this young man who's just been released from prison, and who I thought was called Mandy, but it's called Manda actually. And the two of them instantly seem to click, and this creates some tension because Mandy is not actually in the group, at least initially, of the henchmen, and the two of them seem to like to like they have a connection and they want to spend more time together, but it does cause problems. Coupled into the fact then that the mob boss also takes an interest in the young lady, and we get this love quadrangle, if you want, that yields an interesting story behind it, and one that actually, compared to the other film that I talked about there, Killing, actually has a bit of wide scope because there's different locations and the story does travel. And I thought Cast Door was fantastic, and it's another one of these Vintage World Cinema releases, like I say, that I really, really enjoy. Like, the good prints of it, you always get a nice slipcover of the lineup very nicely, and you know, I watched The True as well. It was also fantastic by Jack Becker. All brilliant films, and there's not very many films in the Vintage World Cinema range, but any that I have seen have been excellent. And they're doing a 4K release of Breathless as well in November, which I've pre-ordered with the vinyl. Just because, you know. So that's Cast Door. And the last one I'm going to talk about is a Criterion. And it's a Criterion from 1941. So 1941 Criterion from Hollywood, and it is Preston Sturges's The Lady Eve. And it seems to be quite a hallowed one that people talk about. It's got Barbara Stanwyck and Henry Fonda. Barbara Stanwyck is a young lady who is a bit of a shyster. She is on a cruise ship with her father and his friend, and they basically seek out to hustle people. So they see Henry Fonda's character coming on board. He's been in the Amazon for some time, and he comes on with an entourage, and they pinpoint him basically to take him on, so to say. They play him, get cards, they give him a bit of money, and they seek to win it back at a future event. But during this time, Henry Fonda's an eligible bachelor, and many of the women on board want to get his attention, but he doesn't seem to be either bothered or know how to further those advances. So Barbara Stanwyck takes it on herself to kind of attract him, and in doing so, she falls for him a little bit. In fact, she falls for him a lot, and it's all going well. She's sticking up for him, etc. But then it's revealed to Henry Fonda's character, because he has a minder, that these people aren't who they say they are, and she isn't who she says she is. And so he rebuffs her, and so starts the story of basically her being jilted, not being happy about that, and Henry Fonda being the Tim Nice but Dim character, if you get the Harry Enfield reference in that. So it's a wonderful comedy. It's brilliantly acted. Having Barbara Stanwyck and Henry Fonda together, they're absolutely fantastic together. The rest of the cast that play their part are regulars from Preston Sturges's films, so you may recognise them if you've seen any of the other ones. I watched Palm Beach Story earlier on this year. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and like I say, thoroughly enjoyed this as well. And definitely one I'd recommend you pick up. It has some great extras in it as well. There's actually a Zoom call recorded, so between Preston Sturges's son Tom and then some prominent people that were around that time, critics or otherwise. Peter Serafinovich is in it, for instance. And yeah, a really, really great comedy, and one that I hardly recommend to anybody. So that's my lot for this week. I've been watching lots of streaming ones. I may do a separate video on that as well, because I've been watching more Olivier Assayas, loving it. Watching more Pedro Almodovar. I actually looked up how to say that. Loving it. So there's lots to talk about there as well, and like I say, I may talk about those in a separate bit, because I thoroughly enjoyed them. Plans for this week. Well, I'm a bit squeezed for time a little bit, but in the same vein as I've been talking about films that have been recommended by other subscribers, Simpson had recommended Roy Anderson to me. I got the set and I started to watch the first movie, and I fell asleep last night. I was hoping to talk about it, and I thought I would just record the video before it was another week before I could record the video. So I've got that to watch, and I've started the Gamera box set as well from Arrow. I've mixed feelings on that one. I might do a separate video on that one as well. Thanks very much for watching. I'll speak to you all soon. Take care. Goodbye.